So I'm staying inside of EDIUS and I'm going to use a program called Vistitle. Now I've put quite a few little tutorials about this on the website as well. But it's an animated titling program for EDIUS. If you want to do titles inside of EDIUS, there is a thing called Quick Titler, which does fairly good static titles and can do rolling and crawling titles, but it doesn't do anything else. Actually, the newest thing they put in that is that it used to work in a rough mode all the time, and then you'd have to press a button to put it in full mode. Now you can leave it in full mode all the time, which is what I always do. So that's the latest thing. But it's okay, and if you just want to do a static title, you know, it's quick, it does the job. But if you want to do anything else, then Vistitle is the best thing to go for. There's a few extra titles that you can put into EDIUS. There's Vistitle, there's one from New Blue, and there's also Pro-Dead Hieroglyph. So there's 3 different options there. Also, if you get Boris Red, that does quite nice titles as well. But Vistitle is by far my favourite. I think it's the easiest to use. I think it's one that works best in real time as well. So I'm going to just click on that and go into Vistitle, and you can see you have an interface where if you just want to type something, you can come in here and say, this is blah blah blah, a title. Grab it, pick it up, move it around. I've got various looks over here, so I can drop a look onto it or I can make my own up. So you know, once you've got your words, obviously you can choose any typeface that you've got inside in the computer. I tend to use impacts a lot because my biggest problem with titles is actually making something that's good taste and nice. I'm probably going to end up something that looks hideous there, but that's my problem because I'm not very good at creating nice titles. There's no good taste filter as well. I really need one of those. But anyway, I've got some text in there. Now I can put a colour on it. I can put a gradient on it. So you can
tried asking your wife? Because it works for me.
Well, she obviously had good taste. She married me, right?
Not your wife, obviously, but my wife. She is my good taste film.
Well, yeah, I think my wife just says everything I do is rubbish.
Oh, yeah. Every pair of trousers I think is terrible American.
Particularly my acting. Anyway, back onto this. So we got. Obviously, I'm getting some things there just to help me line it up. But basically, I've got some words in there. You can do things like change it, that sort of stuff. You can change the just all the stuff you'd expect to do. I then want to add an edge onto it, so I'm just going to click an outline and put that on there and make a nice hideous yellow outline. I'm going to put a shadow on there and let's make that purple because everybody likes a purple shadow. So far I've got something which is pretty much like every other program that, every other titling program. It is nice and sharp though. I do think they're a little bit sharper than you would get if you were making up a title inside of EDIUS with Quick Titler. So I do think they're really nice and sharp. Now I actually want to do something to it. So one of the things I do every year is we do a video forum every year, not video forum, BVE every year. And what I do there is I'll put a thing up on the TV which is just a rolling list of special offers and prices and hope people are going to buy stuff. And I need to knock that up very quickly. I'm always doing everything in a rush. And I don't want words to appear, I want words to kind of type on screen or do something interesting. So I started using Vistitle for this and I find it's easily the fastest thing I can get to knock this sort of stuff up. So I want that to type on screen. What I'm going to do is just come down here and I'm going to stick the cursor there because that's where I wanted to finish. Right click on this little bit at the bottom and say add area, and it puts in a section at the start where my typing on screen is going to happen. And if I right click on that and say play in by character, then the words type on screen. And actually very quick, very easy way to make the stuff type on screen. For my stuff that I did at the show, I literally made up a bunch of paragraphs of text, whacked it on there. If I want them to last a bit longer, I'll pull that out. If I want it to be a bit shorter and type a bit quicker, I'll do that. And that's it, typed on screen, job done, on with the next bit. Which, if you wanted to type on screen with Quick Titler, it'd be practically impossible. You can change the speed of it, so you can get them to type on a bit faster. You can change the length of it. You can do another one at the end, so it can add an area at the end and then it says type out by character. And then it types off screen. You can also see you can do it per line, so if you had 15 lines of text, each line can just appear. It's very simple to do that sort of stuff. Having done that, you save it, come back into EDIUS, and let's just shove it up there, and start it playing. And that's it, you've got a title. It's playing in real time.
There isn't any audio in Vistitle. You couldn't have like a sound every time a character turns up there.
No, there's no audio at all in Vistitle. It's just a graphics
that's
program,
right.
so. I could put it on the timeline in EDIUS. So I could actually put it in here, but I just have to manually put in a click, 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 click. Now that title, okay, that's fine, but maybe I think the words are a bit rubbish. So if I just double click on it, it brings up this mini interface where I can change the words to be something else. Which makes it very quick to actually adjust titles. So for example, when I was doing the tutorial, I wanted to make up a fancy intro on every particular chapter. So I made up a fancy intro, spent an hour or two knocking it up, and then I just needed to reuse it again. So all I did was come in here, take the title, make a copy of it, come into it, change it to be something else, save it under another name, and now I've got two titles which have got different words on it. Now that's, that's rubbish. That's a very, very simple title that I got up there. But yeah, once I've spent a bit of time making one up, it's very, very quick to make copies of it. I did the copy, by the way, using something I really like in EDIUS. I mean, normally you would Control-C and Control-V. If you grab hold of a clip like that and start dragging, as soon as you can see it, if you hold down on the Control key and let go, notice it changes to a plus, and then makes a duplicate of it, a copy of it. It's a very quick way of copying, which I rather like. Obviously I can come in here, I can do things like change the words, make them a bit bigger, I can line them up as well. So when I was changing the words and maybe adding in 2 lines as opposed to 1, I might have to fiddle around with it to make sure it popped up in the right place. I could say I really wish this was a bit longer. So rather than being that length, I wish it finished over here. Well, what you can do is you can come in here and then just click on that button and then save it, and now that title's got longer and that animation now lasts a bit longer. So now it's typing a lot slower because I've made it last over a longer duration. And again, a lot of the time I've gone into Vistitle, I've done a fancy animation and it's a bit slow, I wish it was a bit longer. It's very simple, just pop into here, stick the cursor where you want it to finish, and then click on that button. It either gets faster or slower. So that one's now got faster because I made the whole thing a bit shorter. There's also a bunch of templates up here, so if I come up to Tools and Title Template Library, you can see you've got all these different templates that you can use. So I've got images and movies and dynamic textures. So for example, I just took one of those and shoved them down onto the timeline underneath that lot, and suddenly I've got a swirly texture going in the background. Now when I was doing my, I could have actually did the whole thing inside of Vistitle, but in fact when I was doing my my stuff for the show, I also wanted to bring in images of the product. So I'd bring in some kind of image, and in this case, because I'm in a hurry, I'm going to bring penguins in. Well, 2 reasons. I'm in a hurry and Richard likes penguins. So I'd bring in my box shot of something. I'd actually use the layouter inside of EDIUS to shove it where I want it to, or maybe animate it into place. And then I get a fancy animated background. Get that out of the way. Penguins and words going over the top. You could actually do all that inside of Vistitle. I just found when I was doing it, it was a bit quicker for me to do it this way and do it like that. But you've got a lot of different templates that you can use here. And in fact, if I drag in some of those, where is
rubbish ones.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like some good taste ones, because that would really help me. But you've got things like 3D text coming in and all this stuff. That's just... It is lovely quality, yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. As I say, I think it does a really nice quality text. This 3D stuff here, again, I could come in here and double click on that and change it to mist. Right. Let's just move that across. Oh, forget it.
And that's with EDIUS. That's not Vistitle.
That's
Vistitle. That's all Vistitle.
Yeah.
But you're applying a template on it. Oh,
Yeah, see the template library, it's a Vistitle template library that pops up in EDIUS once you've installed it.
Ah.
So basically you can come up in here and there's lots and lots of different stuff. There's lots of animated ones. There's things like this, which is it's drawing that shape on screen. Now what that actually is a shape, and it's being revealed, but it looks like it's being drawn on screen, and that's just done inside of Vistitle. So a lot of the time, Chinese...
So if you go back into Vistitle, you can change that, can't
you can change all of that,
Yeah.
or make your own
Yeah.
up, yeah. This is one using what's called a handwriting plugin, so it's just drawing things on screen. It's a Chinese program, So that's why there are some Chinese things inside of it.
So if you want to change those Chinese words, you just go into that.
So yeah, I double click on it. Now, once will take it into this, but if not, I would just go straight into the main interface and then find whatever that is, which in this case is this handwriting plugin, and then go into that and then fiddle with it. Now this one you can see is a bunch of strokes. I was going to do a stroke thing in a second, but this is a bunch of strokes on screen which is drawing those words. So yeah, I can come into that and I can change you know, the bits of strokes and all that sort of thing.
I wonder if there's a spell check on that to see if that's right.
I could use an English spell check, I'll tell you that, which, no, there isn't. One of the few titles with a spell checker was Title Motion Pro, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if I want to do something like, I did a tutorial which is on the interweb, which is about doing a line on a map. I get asked for people to do a line on a map an awful lot of times. So what I did was I came in here and I said, right, I'm going to shove in an image. I'm going to use a file which I made earlier, because I didn't have time to go and grab this again. Now this is a map which I took off of a thing called OpenStreetMap, which is a free alternative to Google Maps, which you're allowed to use as long as you credit them, OpenStreetMap. So there we are. So I haven't broken any copyright by using that. But basically I've brought in an image there which shows a map of where we are. Actually, if you went onto the website to see how to come here, you would have been looking at that OpenStreetMap thing there. And you know, it's got the road coming into here, and then this is where we are down here. And I'd like to put a line which just travels down there, around here, and then takes you around to where our offices are. So having put the image in there and made it fit the screen, I am going to come up to this thing, which lets you get to lots of plugins. And they do talk quite a lot about plugins in the program, but most of the time you get all the plugins with it. So there's lots and lots of plugins. There's the karaoke plugin, which I've never actually used. Actually, can't. Yeah, there's karaoke. Because I refuse to do karaoke. But I use the 3D particle plugin. It's got a lot of nice fancy 3D particles in it. The one I'm trying to head for here is going to be 2D stroke animation. Basically, it's something that can draw a line, and then you can animate that line. So I've just dragged that on there. Now effectively what it's done is on the timeline down here inside of Vistitle, I'm going to have that and I'm going to have the extra plugin on top of it. Make more sense in a second. First thing I want to do is click on that button so I can see the background, and then I'm going to draw a path which is going to go from there, bendy a bit there, there, and that's where we are, more or less. So all I've done is draw a line, but now if I press the button, you notice it draws it on screen. I can change the thickness of the line. I can change how fine it is. So fineness turns it into a bunch of dots if you want to. You can feather the edges up, and if I make it quite thick and then sort of semi-transparent, you'll be able to see the road underneath it. Obviously the colour, all that sort of thing you can change. At the moment the line goes across the entire shot, and actually I'd like it that when I actually get to, actually no it doesn't, does it? It does finishes because that's where I left it. If you play it, right, let's go there. If you play it, it actually takes the entire length of the title to get to the office. But there's a little thing up here where I can say, right, I want it to finish about 44% before the end of it. So if it's a minute long, that's going to be at about 34 seconds, isn't it? 44% of the way through the animation, or whatever. Let's just change. So that just basically means it's going to go through there and do the movement, and then stop for a bit, and then obviously the title's going to fade away. I can change that thing at the end, so I don't actually have to have a logo at the end, or I can come and find any kind of file on the computer. It's got a bunch of files with it. So let's come in by paper aeroplane. Yeah. But of course that could be anything. Those are PNG files, which is a pretty standard image file format. Make up a PNG file with a transparent background. You can use that as the pointer. And you can see here I can even, at the moment I've ticked this little thing which says rotate it with the path to make sure it goes with it. But if not, you can do things like, so as it moves around, that paper aeroplane is moving with it. But if I don't do that, then I can change what direction it is and where it is and all that sort of thing, and how far it is off. And so a very simple way basically of putting a line on screen. Come out of that, save it as an animation, and again let's put it up there, and now I've got animated line going to the office. Which, if it wasn't long enough, I could double click, go back into it, drag it out a bit more, save it, and it just takes a bit longer.
If you make a still image of that now when you finish it, okay, and you make a still image of it, like using the camera shot or something.
Yeah.
Can you then export that as a PNG or JPEG to use outside the system?
Yeah, I mean basically, yeah, it's a frame grab. So yeah,
Oh, right.
I mean basically, I press the button there. I'll go to the image which is on the hard drive. It's saved as a BMP because that's my defaults.
Okay.
But yes, you can. You know, if I wanted it to hang around for a bit longer, I'd actually use that thing to say hang around for 50% of the animation, rather than putting a still at the end.
Let's put some things on the web which are actually still images, but certainly have still lines on
Yeah,
them.
yeah. I mean, as I say, there's just this still image thing here. It just clicks it and saves it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just saved that as a bitmap or
What's the
whatever.
cost of the plugins?
Well, basically, if you buy it, Vistitle itself is 200 quid. And there's some extra plugins that you can buy with it, but this is actually always included. So this 2D stroke animation is included. The extra plugins that you get are the 3D particle plugins. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and go 3D particle. And you get some stuff like that which you can animate and fly across the screen. There's trailing particles, there's lighting effects. Bursts, so if you want some fireworks going off, you know, I just shove that onto the let's put that on there. So I've got some sparkly things going on there. There's some clocks here as well. Let's just do another one. Now these are the sort of things which I'd normally get in some kind of compositing program. I have to admit, this one here, which I put on an area, I actually put behind my Doctor Who character when he was regenerating.
Right.
So I actually used it just to make up an element that I used somewhere else rather than on a title. But with these sort of things you can animate them, of course. So if I was to come back to this point emitter for this one here and then open up the animation side of things, which one is it? That's I don't remember anyway. Right. So no, so all this lot is controlling the particle. Make sure I'm looking at the right one. Right. But you can actually keyframe this stuff. So I was faffing around there because I couldn't keyframe the motion, but I didn't realise the cursor was way off the clip. So it had to be back on the clip here. But, you know, I can do things like make that move across screen. And let's move that to the front. So, you know, you've got a particle there. Let's go back to the start. Was it that one? Oh, sorry, I'm making a right mess of this, aren't I? That should be animating across the screen. I don't know why it isn't at the moment. But yeah, basically you can animate this stuff and it flies around the screen. So if you choose some of the trailing particles, which are the top ones, then you'll actually get it to fly across the screen for you. But that's an extra plugin that you can get to go with Vistitle itself. Let's just come down and shove it onto the timeline and then play it.
What's the cost of that, though?
So the Vistitle on its own is £200 plus VAT. With the extra plugin, it's £240 plus VAT.
So if you've already got it, you can get it for 40 quid.
If you can, no, it's cheaper if you buy it with Vistitle. To upgrade, it's about £70.
Is that all stuff that's in the program?
I've only just upgraded.
Yeah.
So, it's up.
See, there were various packages with version 1 where you didn't actually get the plugins with it, and there's some where you did. So it depends on when you got it as to whether you actually had those effects or not.
3 weeks.
So version
Yeah.
2. You've got
No, but when you had the original one. Obviously you went from version 1 to version 2. Now the original version 1s we sold didn't have the plugins with them, and then for a large chunk of the time we actually came with the extra plugins. So if you bought it with the extra plugins, then when you upgraded you'd still have the extra plugins. If not, you'd have to buy them as an extra. Now when it comes to upgrading, you know, if you had version 1 and you upgraded to version 2, it still costs you more to buy extra with plugins. So you haven't kind of lost anything, if you like, by just buying version 1 to version 2 and not the plugin pack. It's when you buy it outright, it's actually cheaper to buy it with plugins. But yes, as I say, it's basically it's £200 or 240 quid. If I've confused you thoroughly, grab hold of Ringo or Adam and they can explain it better to you. It's just basically you can buy it with or without plugins. If you're upgrading, you can upgrade it and upgrade it with plugins, or just upgrade it without. So upgrading with plugins is about 140 quid, upgrading without plugins is about 70 quid. If you bought it after the 1st of March 2012, then you can get a free update still to version 2. If you want to use this in EDIUS 6, then you've got to have version 2. But if you have version 2, then you get, even if you bought it like a year ago and you still got version 2, you can upgrade that for free to the one that works in EDIUS 7. How are we doing for time? We're not doing very well for time, so unfortunately I'm going to have to zip on. But basically, there's a ton of stuff that you can do in here, and what I like about it is it's sensible and a lot of it works in real time. So, you know, you type something, which I can't see for Toffee because the text is probably black. So you type something, when you want to keyframe it, then you'll come over here and you've got a little stopwatch, same sort of thing as you get in EDIUS and After Effects and so on. And you can turn on the stopwatch and then you can actually animate stuff as it goes across the screen. So I can pick it up and move it, and that will fly across the screen there, and I've now got an animated moving title. If I want to do things like, let's go to that keyframe there. Bing. I want to smooth that out. Then I can do things like smooth the vertex, I can put a Bezier handle on it so you can do a nice curvy motion path on it. You can pick these things up and move them around. And if I was to do an add area, which I talked about before, and plane by character now, you'll find that each of those letters is popping in. There's also a whole bunch of other effects that you can do with it. So you've got glows and lens flares and stripes. You know, just take one of those and shove it onto there as well. And as you can see, it's gone underneath it. And then, you know, I get a stripe going across it, or I get another lens flares. All of which I can keyframe that, I can change where it is, I can move it up and down. Everything's thoroughly keyframeable. I can start to build up all sorts of things to do with the title. Let's just move it off as well at the end. I probably ought to choose out effects, but and put a blur on at the end there. I need to fiddle a bit with that because it's not quite all going off at the end there, but you can see I've got a whole variety of effects that I've thrown on there. And again, I'm just putting it on a video track so I can see it over that. Make it a little bigger. So a bit slow, a bit fast, probably ought to make it a bit longer. But what I like about it is that the interface is very familiar, very similar to the way that EDIUS keyframes stuff. So if you're used to EDIUS, it's pretty much the same. But it's also similar to After Effects and programs like that. Whereas if you ever tried to animate anything in Title Motion Pro, if you were ever using that, you know, I didn't do that very much. And whenever I went back to do it again, I'd have to look at my own tutorial to remember how to do it. Because I worked out how to do it and then I'd forget because it just didn't make sense. Whereas what you've got here is a series of tracks, and so I've got your main text in there, which if there's a 3D transform, which is, you know, up, down, left and right and rotation and so on, and a bunch of keyframes, and then you can pick them up and move them around, and it's very much like every other sort of compositing program. The only peculiar thing I found about this is that if I put in various layers, and I haven't drawn any boxes or anything like that, or how about a clock? Let's put a clock in. So, you know, I put a clock in there. That is actually physically on top of that, even though it's underneath it, which I always found was a little bit peculiar, but I noticed there's something that they have done in the new one, where you can swap it around, so that's on top of that. That wasn't in version 1. I had to check because I wasn't entirely sure. But now I've taken that, it's actually exactly the same as it is inside of EDIUS. But I do like, I think you get very nice, sharp quality titles out of it. It's also pretty much real time. There's a bit there that wasn't playing in real time, which is when I stuffed this blur on top of those two lens flares there. It's not actually playing properly in real time because I put too much on it. But most of the rest of the stuff is playing in real time. You know, so for example, I had the 3D titles that I did somewhere, which are actually that is a piece of text which has been extruded in 3D. It's got shiny textures on it, it's got lights on it, it's got all the proper stuff you'd expect with a piece of 3D text. And that's also playing in real time. And that's because it's actually done by the graphics card. So this is something which actually uses the graphics card to do a lot of effects work. I've got a nice graphics card in here, it's called an NVIDIA 580. It's a couple of years old. Equivalent card these days would cost you about 250 quid. But it's doing all the work of playing all that stuff for me, and most of the time I don't have to render. Sometimes I do have to render, that's when I've stuffed too much on it, but most of the time I don't have to render. And now when it comes to my big sales presentation that I did using Vistitle, which had all those words on screen and pictures and everything else, in previous shows I've actually done that using Boris or using After Effects. And after laying it all out, I then have to wait for 2 hours for it to render. Which, seeing as I do everything in the last minute, and I'm sometimes doing it on the train on the way up, is a bit of a bummer. With Vistitle, I had 15 minutes worth of stuff. I needed to knock it up into an MP4 file, which I could then play on a player that was feeding our TV. I was using my little laptop with its quick sync on there, so it took me about 15 minutes to knock it up. With all the animation and everything else going on, because Vistitle was doing it in real time, EDIUS was doing the quick syncing, bang, 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 job done. So I think it's definitely the best titler that actually works inside of EDIUS. The new blue one's not bad. Hieroglyph is interesting. Yeah, it's a bit. I mean, it's nice, but a bit peculiar.
Every time I come along the web stage, I see how much more it can do than I don't use it that often, and there seems to be so much more to it. I know you talked about it before. Are you doing any demos for this?
Tutorial, you mean?
Yeah.
No, I've done some tutorials which are on the web, which includes that drawing a line on a map and some of the stuff about particles, but no, I'm not making a tutorial on it, because honestly I don't know it well enough. I mean, I don't do animated titles that much, and I know quite a bit of it, but I don't know enough. But there are some other people doing it. So the German guys who produced the free EDIUS tutorial that's on the Tinterweb, they're doing one, and there's a guy called Jerry who's an American, who's very helpful on the forums, he's doing one. So I thought with them doing it, I'm not going to do one.
Is that the EDIUS forums?
Yeah. The EDIUS forums are very, very good. I'm on there quite a lot. There's a lot of very helpful people on there. You get sensible answers on there all the time. But yeah, basically there's a guy on there who's doing a Vistitle tutorial. There are a huge amount of tutorials that come with it, made by the makers. But since they're Chinese, they don't do any commentary on them, and then they're okay, but they're not. They need some words, So I'll be doing some more, and because I'm not going to make any chargeable ones, I'll put them up on the website as basically advertising. So yeah, there'll be more on the website. But yeah, these guys, Jerry and the Germans, are both producing one, which will probably be very good.
Just one quick question. There's a revolving globe on the one of the templates.
Yeah.
And it goes around at a certain speed. And I wanted to slow it down, and I couldn't work out how to slow it down. Do you know the template I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it's this one. It's. Who can see that? One of these says HDMI on it. It's that one.
And it revolves at a certain speed. And I thought, well, I wanted it to slow down.
Yes, I'm pretty sure you can't do that one. Because it's going to have to wake up. This has been sitting here waiting to show that off. Yeah, but basically that's an animation. Rather than being a globe, it's an animation, a movie that's been made up in something else.
Yeah.
And then it's a set speed. So yeah.
So you can't change the speed.
Yeah.
Can you put it on the timeline and then change the speed on the EDIUS timeline?
You could, but then you'll change the length of the whole animation.
Yeah.
You'll change the speed for the whole animation, which means that you'll be then applying slow motion to it and frame blending it and stuff like that. So but that particular bit, if you look at that there, is, which bit is that? That says plug in. There's a rotate there, that might be it. See, some of these, it's one of those things that I haven't really played that much with, but if I knock that down a bit, down would be the...
Well, that's done it.
Yeah, so in that case you can. Because some of the stuff that we've got in here, there's a lot of stuff I didn't go through, but if you go into this, which is the template library, see there's a lot of different objects in here, and some of these objects are actually movies.
Yeah.
So I assumed that that was a movie, but I don't think it is. I think that is a sphere, a 3D sphere that's got a texture on it, in which case, yeah, there was...
Can you just go through again how you did it like that?
What I did was I clicked on it, because I wasn't sure which one it was.
Yeah.
And then I, having found out which one it was,
Yeah.
went to the 3D transform, and there's rotate, and you can see there's keyframes on it because
Yeah,
you've got these
yeah.
2 dots.
Mm.
So go to the end one. Always, when you're going between keyframes in anything, I always tend to go for these buttons to make sure you get to the keyframe, not slightly off.
Yeah.
And then having got to that, I came over to this section here and said, okay, well, where's the Y rotate there?
Yes, of course.
Let's just change that,
Yeah.
because that's obviously the thing that's been
Yeah.
keyframed.
Okay, thank you.
So in that case, yes, you can, because it's actually an object with a texture on it as opposed to a movie.
Thank you.
You couldn't do a slow-mo inside of Vistitle with a movie.
No, no.
And I've only really touched on the stuff it can do here. You can draw shapes inside of it, you can animate the shapes, you can bring in images, you can do still, you can actually do montages and all sorts of stuff inside of it. All that is just, again, a title with a lot of different layers on side of it. And I can change any of that. I can just go to a text window and just change some of the text. So, yeah, instead of doing that, I should do that. Nope, I just fluffed that up a bit well. But basically, it's a very, very good program, lots of very good animation stuff about it, and easily my favourite animated titling program. The reason I swapped over to this machine, and I'm going to go on very quickly in a second, but the reason I swapped over to this is because this is Adobe Premiere. And so if you are a Premiere user and you want to stay with Premiere, you can actually get Vistitle for Premiere these days. Same price, does all the same things. If I want to create up a new title in here, inside of here, I'll just go to Vistitle, and then you can go to the list of templates and choose one of the templates. Not movies, whatever. I was looking for that 3D text, but never mind. Choose a template, and then you can shove that onto the timeline, and it'll play that text for you. So basically, Vistitle is now working in Premiere. It works now in Premiere, which is Premiere 6 or Premiere CC. It works in Avid, and it works in EDIUS. So it started off its life in EDIUS, and now it's moving out into the world. One peculiarity about it is that if you buy the EDIUS version and you want the Premiere version, you've got to buy it again. And you can't have the Premiere and the EDIUS one on the same computer, which is why I had to swap to my laptop, because they won't coexist at all. Which is kind of different to everybody else. Everybody else, if you buy a new blue titler, you get all the different versions of it. Not with Vistitle. On the other hand, with Vistitle, they did a free upgrade offer, basically, and they said anybody that bought after a certain time, after the beginning of March, actually gets a free update. That was in 2012, they're still doing it. So there's some advantages to it, there's some disadvantages to it. It also needs a dongle, so you've got to have a dongle plugged into it. But we actually get Vistitle ourselves directly from the Chinese. We can do all the upgrades here and everything else because we were finding it difficult to get in other ways.